The Resident Evil games can be pretty difficult, especially on their highest difficulty setting, which can be Madhouse, Hardcore, Inferno, Village of Shadows, Professional, etc., depending on the game. However, they can be made even more difficult with the simple choice of using naught but a knife to clear them. With so many fearsome and dangerous creatures to be found in these games, most of which excel or can only hurt you up close, it's easy to see why just using a knife is enough to significantly elevate difficulty. Chief among these ruthless creatures are the bosses, which can be downright brutal to face with only your trusty steel. A few months ago, I took on the challenge of beating every single boss in the Resident Evil 4 remake using only my blade on professional difficulty. And a couple of months later, I did the same thing with separate ways as well. You can find links to my videos featuring all boss fights knife only in the description below and at the end of this video. I decided that it would be fun to use my experience accomplishing this to rank all the bosses in this game according to their knife-only difficulty on professional. So, let's get to it.
That all you got? Too slow!
Just like I hesitated to include him in that other video, I also questioned if I should rank him in this one. This is a boss fight, but you can only do it knife only, so yeah. Even if I was to rank it though, it would still be at the bottom of the list, since he has low HP, meaning that it does not take that many slashes to take him out, and his parry windows are extremely generous even on professional. The only thing you really need to watch out for is his sweep kick, but if you keep an eye out for the prompt, you can avoid it no problem. All these things make this knife fight a breeze. He might be very intimidating, especially since this fight happens like 2 minutes after you begin separate ways, and you know how tough the other Verdugo is, but his first scuffle is actually a cakewalk, even knife only on professional. Because like Krauser, Black Robe in this fight has a small health pool and easy to avoid / parry attacks. Sure, the fog and the clones it summons does make the fight a little trickier, but since you can just thin the herd until you find the real one by slashing blindly, and the said real one will only take a few more slashes, the doppelganger party should not give you too much trouble. So you will have this familiar foe down in no time. Facing such a titanic opponent with only a knife is certainly a scary prospect, especially since he cannot be parried. But he has the same weakness as many other big enemies do in games like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Elden Ring, etc., which keeps him from being too difficult. Simply get under or behind him and you can avoid most of his attacks as you slash away at his legs. All you really need to watch out for is his forward kick. So long as you stay clear of this, after enough dancing and slashing, you will be the David to this Goliath.
Two of them! One for each of us! Leave this one to me!
I wouldn't necessarily say that this El Gigante fight is more difficult than the previous one, but it's certainly more annoying and time consuming, which is ultimately why it ranks higher. Yes, you're facing two giants instead of one, but you are not outnumbered since Luis is with you. He not only helps you deal damage, but he can keep at least one Gigante busy for you while you deal with the other one, making the fight a lot easier than what it would be otherwise. The same strategy for the one El Gigante applies here as well, but only for the one without armor. The armored one is the one that presents the true challenge in this fight, since it is basically impervious to damage. This includes the knife, of course. So all you can do is kite it around until Luis fetches the dynamite, at which point you have to use a firearm to shoot it, since you can't knife it and Luis won't shoot it. Even after you expose its weak spot though, it's still outside the knife range. So in order to clear the fight, knife only, you need to wait until Luis kills it by himself while you just run around trying not to get squished. This is why I said that this Double Trouble edition might not necessarily be more difficult, but it's certainly more time consuming and annoying, which allows it to rank higher. What gives this El Gigante fight the edge over the previous two is that unlike the single fight in the main game and like the dual fight that happens later, you're not facing one opponent. However, like the former and unlike the latter, you are alone and thus outnumbered, which is where a lot of the difficulty for this El Gigante fight comes from. The mob of ganado can and will be a thorn in your side. Sure, you can parry them, unlike the giant that is the actual boss, but in professional, it's difficult to do so. Plus, since there is multiple of them, even if you parry one, you can't parry all of them if they gang up on you. And they aren't really that easy to kill knife only, especially if they swarm you. What saves this fight from being an absolute nightmare is the fact that you can grapple up to the houses in the arena, which allows you to escape briefly to take a breather and reposition. Yeah, with only your knife you basically cannot do anything from the roof, but at least up here you're safe for the most part. Another thing that comes in very handy during this fight is baiting El Gigante to kill the ganado for you. Sure, it's tedious and time-consuming, but he can and will dispatch them effectively with little danger to you so long as you move around. Once it's just him and you, the same strategy for the single fight from the main game applies, though this El Gigante seems to have more HP, forcing you to endure the dancing around for longer. Now I know what you're thinking. How is the final fight against Black Robe ranked lower than the second fight? Well, honestly, I found the second fight to be more difficult. I attribute this to two things. First, the second fight happens way earlier in the game, so you have less resources. And the second, the final fight has two phases, each individually easier than the entire second fight. In the first phase, I think he is actually easier to parry and to avoid than in the second fight. Plus he has less HP and he does not summon clones. In the second phase, he gives you a lot of room to breathe when he's underground, and when he's not underground, he favors range attacks that actually punish you for staying away, which is the opposite of what you want to do when you have only a knife. By playing to your weapon's strength, or rather its only function, you're actually pretty safe from damage and you avoid the bombs he leaves on the ground, which can mess you up when closing the gap. The only things you really need to watch out for are a devastating charge attack he does, which can and will likely catch you, especially in knife range, and the fact that he can summon Novistador, which are annoying. Though like with the separate ways El Gigante and one other boss we will get to, you can get the boss to kill the ads for you, which makes your life easier. Plus, unlike the Ganado, the Novistador only take one slash to down, making them easier to deal with. So despite being the final fight against this memorable foe, it's not the most difficult one.
Uncle Sam did one thing for me. I'll give him that. He sent me you, and not some good-for-nothing grunt.
Krauser makes up for his first fight being so trivial by posing a much bigger challenge in his final fight. The first part can be tricky, since you cannot shoot him or his traps and drones. Though I totally cheated and shot the mines, because I'm pretty sure there is no other way through them besides taking one for the team. However, with careful, smart movements, this first part is honestly not too bad. The second part of the fight basically mirrors the knife fight with him earlier, so it's a cakewalk. The final part of the fight with him transformed is the true challenge. He remains arguably as easy to avoid, but he is more difficult to parry, plus he is faster and more relentless. Additionally, he is at his most dangerous when you are close to him, making a knife-only approach perilous. His ground smash attack can also be difficult to avoid depending on where you are standing when he initiates it. Even with all of this though, I honestly did not find him to be too difficult. If I remember correctly, I took him down in my first try, which is ultimately why I rank him here. On paper, he seems to warrant a higher rank, but my experience says otherwise. The Big Cheese's difficulty comes from the fact that he cannot be parried except for when you are on the second level of the arena. But this does not help you when you are knife only, since you can't do anything from up here. So when up close, you cannot parry him. At least, I think you can't. Unlike El Gigante, however, who also cannot be parried, the Big Cheese does not let you juke around him danger-free. He will spam his grab attack, which is annoying. It will deplete your HP slowly but surely. Plus, he has several slams and sweeps that can be dangerous, especially since not all of them are avoidable via a prompt. What truly elevates the difficulty of this fight, however, is the fact that once he loses his legs, the fight becomes mostly a distance fight. You have to diligently dodge the beams he throws at you and take advantage of the brief moments when he gets into knife range. Additionally, you cannot shoot the red barrels, which are a great way to deal extra damage and to stagger him. Plus, when you do manage to get close enough to slash him, you're also close enough for him to smack you around. To top it all up, he has a lot of HP, making this a battle of endurance, which will be a theme going forward.
Lamb, servant of the heretic wolf. This will be your trial and tribulation.
Tribulation? You were the one in for
Initially, I would have told you that this is the most difficult knife-only boss fight in separate ways, because Sadler takes a lot of punishment and he dishes out a lot of punishment. However, once I got the timing down to parry him, he became much easier to deal with. Just stay close, slash away, parry every time he tries to smack you, hit the dodge prompt when it pops up, and take cover behind the pillars when he does any of his range attacks or duck under his acid vomit attack. Even with this strategy though, it's not a cakewalk, since one small mistake will see you taking a barrage of damage, since he does pursue you relentlessly, leaving you with very little room to breathe. It's honestly a fight where you need to be almost flawless to emerge victorious. But being flawless is relatively easy once you get enough practice. Plus, this being the final fight affords you a lot of leeway for mistakes, since you surely have a stockpile of healing items at your disposal. So you don't need to be that flawless.
Won't let me go so easily, huh?
This is my personal most difficult knife-only boss fight in separate ways. It took me the longest to do. On paper, yes, Sadler might be more difficult, but at least with him, you are facing one foe instead of two and then three. He has no ranged attacks like Sadler, but he can quickly close the gap. And if he ganks you with his clones, you're in for a world of hurt. Additionally, he has a lot of HP and, like I mentioned before, and unlike with Sadler, you don't have a lot of healing resources, meaning that you cannot afford to make too many mistakes. While he remains easy enough to parry and to avoid, I still found the Sadler to be easier to parry and you have the pillars to help you get some distance and protection. With Black Robe, you can run, but you cannot hide. All these things make for a fight that forced me to put my best foot forward in order to overcome it.
You, you're Ramon's lapdog.
While Black Robe is quite challenging across 3 battles, he cannot hold a candle to his counterpart in the main story. While this robeless Verdugo cannot summon clones or teleport, it's a lot faster, more aggressive, and it excels even more in close quarters. 3 things you don't want in an enemy when you only have a knife. On top of all this, he has a lot more HP, making this a much longer battle, which is alleviated somewhat by the fact that it happens relatively late in the game. The one saving grace are the liquid nitrogen tanks, which will let you get a lot of damage in safely, and they will also force him to retreat, awarding you some precious time to breathe. However, once you're out of nitrogen, he will be on you 24/7, giving you very little time to catch your breath. Thankfully, he is fairly easy to parry and he has several attacks, noticeably his jump attack, that leave him open for a while. Still, he can and will be one fearsome opponent to go up against with only your knife. But at the same time, he is my favorite boss fight to do with only my trusty blade.
Unforgivable heresy. Yet is it not the sinners salvation? The powerful child shall glisten once more.
Sadler manages to outrank Verdugo for a few reasons. First, he has even more HP, especially since there is nothing equivalent to the nitrogen for this fight. Second, he hits like a truck. Third, as far as I can tell, he only has one attack that can be parried, and it's difficult to do so. Fourth, he can summon Novistador and a lot more than Black Robe can. Yeah, they remain easy to kill and you can get Sadler to kill them for you, plus you have a bigger arena to work with, but they will force you to kite around the arena, which is something you don't want to do because Sadler will punish you for it with his acid breath and tentacles. Fifth, he can leap to the platform in the middle from where he can pepper you with acid, including a difficult to avoid pattern of it. Sixth, he can destroy parts of the arena, limiting your movement. Plus he can leap around to give you even less space. And the seventh, some of his weak spots are outside of knife range, compounding his massive level of resilience. The only saving grace is that he is big enough that you can apply the strategy of staying under or behind him to minimize danger and increase damage output. But like I alluded to earlier, the Novistador will render this strategy moot. Plus, Sadler has several ways to still hit you even while you dance around him, including a dangerous grab attack. Honestly, I got very lucky with this fight, since I beat it with basically no HP and no healing items left. Thankfully, I committed at this point. I just attacked while hoping that he went down before I did. My faith paid out.
You are nothing but a match from my script, Mr. Kennedy. So don't get too carried away. Your biggest thing is over.
As you might imagine, the worst foe to go up against the knife only is one that keeps its distance, thus preventing you from doing anything. Well, this is where Salazar excels at. Initially, I thought this fight was impossible to do knife only, or at least it would take an eternity to do so, because he simply would not get close. You can do some nice damage initially before he slips away, but then he will stay far out of reach. However, I soon found out that if you stay under the stairs and the bridge, you will force him to come down looking for you, at which point you can finally slash away at him. But not without peril. Getting close to him is normally a mistake, since he has a one-shot bite attack. Additionally, charging towards him to get close can be dangerous, since his acid breath, or more likely his acid bombs, can and will catch you. While Black Robe is very obvious when planting said bombs, Salazar likes to set them all over the place stealthily, making it all too easy for you to accidentally trigger one, which will not only hurt you but it will stagger you. And should this happen close to Salazar, well, prepare to become his dinner. I cannot tell you how many times this happened to me. One thing that makes this fight a lot easier is the fact that his acid vomit attack leaves him open for a long time if you can avoid it and get behind him while he uses it, allowing you to get a lot of damage in, potentially staggering him since his weak spot is easy to hit with the knife, unlike with Sadler. Still, his massive HP pool, the limited windows to damage him in, and the many ways he can punish you for getting close or trying to, plus how much damage he can deal, all add up to the most difficult boss fight in this game, at least for me, to defeat knife only. It took me hours to do so. I almost gave up and it frustrated me to no end. Truly an experience I do not want to relive. But there you have it. Painful as it was to kill all the bosses knife only, it was also very fun, satisfying, and an awesome challenge. Please let me know in the comments below if you have tried this challenge. Did you succeed? If you didn't succeed, why? If you haven't tried it, would you? And if you did try it and succeeded, at least partially, which boss was the most difficult one for you? It was definitely very fun to recall my experience doing this in order to make this video. Hopefully it was just as fun for you to watch. Please let me know if you would like to see more videos like this one in the future. Remember to click the links on screen now to check out the videos featuring all these fights knife only, uncut with no commentary. Thank you so very much for watching.